Welcome, everyone, to the Game or Die podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Moore, and today we've got another episode of the podcast, which is going to be a little bit light, to be honest. Unfortunately, life has gotten kind of a little bit crazy, and gaming has taken a back seat over the last month and a half or so for me. When I do get to game, I have been trying to play as much stuff as possible, but every once in a while, there's lulls in your life where your main hobby just kind of, again, doesn't seem super interesting, takes a backseat to other life issues and things like that. And that's kind of what's happened to me over the last month and a half or so. In the last episode, I was talking a lot about two main games that I was playing. One would be Breath of the Wild, the next game in the Zelda franchise. So Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And my wife and I were both gone at separate times during the month. And so we both had to pause playing that game for 2 weeks out of the month. So that really kind of stopped our progress. It pretty much halted our progress, and we haven't picked it up back since. Mostly due to a couple other factors. One, when we were playing games, we would do it after dinner, and we kind of got into a routine of watching a new show. Over the last several years, we've been really marathoning through some shows, and last year we started with Frasier from, I think, 1995-ish, somewhere around there, and it was a blast. We loved that show, and unfortunately, we watched it out of order because Frasier shows up in Cheers first. He started off in the Cheers show, and then he moved into the Frasier spin-off show, his own actual show that actually became almost as popular, if not as popular as Cheers itself. So, with the new Frasier show, the quote-unquote reboot or Frasier 2023, whatever you want to call it, that kind of got us into starting to watch that show last year, around the summer, around this time last year. Then we finished that show, and then we moved on to Cheers because we're like, hey, Frasier showed up and started in Cheers. We should watch that. And we went through that. So after we finished Cheers, we were kind of trying to figure out a new show to watch, and we didn't find anything for a while until we decided and landed on Everybody Loves Raymond. Now, we both watched this show when we were growing up a little bit. For me, I only probably saw a handful of episodes. When we got engaged, my wife and I got engaged, we started watching a few of the later episodes, especially one where the brother Robert gets married and they're planning the wedding and a lot of crazy things happen. And we kind of use that as some inspiration for our own wedding. And that's basically where it was. So we only saw a few of the last episodes of that show, but we never saw the beginning. We never saw most of it. And so we started watching that, and that kind of took place over the Legend of Zelda game. And that's a bummer because Tears of the Kingdom is a fantastic game, and I want to finish it. Also, a few other new games came out in the last month. We're in the beginning of July, and over June, man, I basically have barely played any video games, and it's just quite a bummer. One of the games that I really want to play, which is Diablo 4, came out last month, and that was actually our June game of the month for Couch Money. And unfortunately, I was not able to participate because it's a brand new game, and $60 is just a little bit too steep right now for things that are going on in our lives. We've got so many other car issues and mechanic bills and things like that. That money could be spent better else places in our lives. And so I just foregone the purchasing of new games over the last month and a half or so. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end here of this podcast. But that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now, is just gaming is a little bit too expensive to purchase new games right now, and there just isn't things that are interesting me enough to be able to play. I'll talk about a few that I have been playing, but that's kind of the reason why this episode is going to be so short to begin with. So without further ado, let's kind of get into what I have been playing. So like I said, there's a few games that have come out that I really want to get into, but one that I actually finally did get into was the Need for Speed Unbound. This came out at the tail end of last year, and they released a 10-hour, basically a demo, a 10-hour demo on the EA app or the EA store for PC. And a lot of people have issues with, video game stores, which I totally get. I totally understand that because they're a bunch of garbage. They're additional apps that have to run in the background to launch a specific game when us as PC gamers are very, very well equipped and also just familiar with clicking on a shortcut and having the game launch. Steam made that a little bit easier because it was one place to get our games, download, install them, update them, and run them all in one single place. But over the last 7 or 8 years, Steam used to be the main place that you would get games. Good Old Games, or GOG.com, GOG.com, which stood for Good Old Games, but they kind of removed that because it was only for older games that you could not buy really anymore. It was harder to run on modern systems, and so GOG, which is owned by CD Projekt Red, they started up this store and allowed us to buy older games that would run on modern hardware. But since their store has expanded, they've grown in popularity over the last 10-ish years or so. They removed the Good Old Games part, and now they're just GOG.com or GOG.com. And they branched out into a lot of modern games and things like that. That's where you buy, their games like The Witcher 3, Cyberpunk 2077, those types of games. So GOG is kind of like the runner-up in the PC store where you can buy and download and install and play games. You'd have Steam. You'd have GOG as a backup for those random games you want to play that were not available on Steam. And then somewhere around 2017, 2018, everyone and their mother started developing launchers, their own storefronts and launchers for their games. You've got EA, which had EA Origin, which is now EA App. You had Ubisoft, which used to be called Uplay, but now they've rebranded it to Ubisoft Connect. You have Rockstar, which has their Rockstar Social Club app, where you can only buy their games like Grand Theft Auto, the Definitive Edition that came out a couple years ago and was just terrible. Those are some of the stores, and it's just ballooned into this crazy amount. And it all kind of kicked off with the Epic Game Store, the people who make Fortnite, right? When Fortnite was originally released, it was dead on arrival. No one liked Fortnite. No one played it. No one gave a crap about Fortnite. But unfortunately, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds got so popular that they literally stole part of the code. And there was a whole, back and forth legal issue about taking part of the code for Battlegrounds and using it for Fortnite to jerry-rig basically this Battle Royale mode into Fortnite as a separate part of Fortnite and keep the single player. But then the single player became as unpopular as it originally launched with, and then this Battle Royale mode became what Fortnite now is, and it's one of the biggest games in the world. It's kind of crazy, right? So Epic, they had their Epic Game Store to buy Fortnite and started buying up exclusive rights to sell these games on their storefront to compete with Steam. And it's a real big bummer, but that's where we're at in gaming right now, is there's just so many competition storefronts, and all of them kind of suck for the most part. Steam is still the best one out of all of them. But I will say I don't harbor any issues with Epic Game Store like most people do. And the main reason is because it's just a storefront. It's just a launcher. It sucks that we have to have these all installed and run on top of Steam. But man, if you're struggling with having a couple processes running in the background that take a very little system resources, you need to get a new computer at that point. That's really what it comes down to. Should it happen? No, but we can't fight it at this point, so we got to deal with it. The other reason why I don't have a big issue with the Epic Game Store is for the single fact that they give away games on a weekly basis. Every Thursday at 10 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Pacific Time, they give away at least one game per week. Every week since 2017, they have been 2017, 2018 maybe. They have been giving away a free game every single week. There are times when they do their winter games or their winter sales where they'll give away a game a day. It's crazy that they do this, and it's awesome. And it's something that I wish Steam would do more often, because Steam used to. If you remember, back in the olden days of these Steam winter sales, the Christmas sales were so good, first of all. And second of all, and this is getting into what I want to talk about at the end, but I'll just get it out of the way now because I'm talking about it. The Christmas sales were so good. You would have 95% sales on for games that, came out a couple weeks, maybe a couple months ago, and they would be dropped down to barely a few bucks. Now we're getting Steam sales where it's barely even worth checking out. There's no games associated with it. It's the same deals week in and week out. And they don't give away games. They used to. They gave away games like Left 4 Dead 2, Gary's Mod, I can't remember, and a couple others. They used to give away games. And there was also this Steam sale where people would have glitches in their sale where they would have X amount of time to refresh the page, and you would maybe get a glitched sale. Instead of the game supposed to being 50% off, it was 98% off or set as free. And so every day you would refresh at 10 o'clock to wait for the store to refresh and see if you could get a game for free just for funsies, right? It wasn't supposed to happen, but that's how it happened. And it's just really interesting that we don't have that anymore. So Epic Game Store jumping in and literally just giving away free games. Some of them, most of them are bad. We used to get a lot of good games for free, and now it's a lot of middle to low tier games. There are repeats. There's definitely a week every once in a while. I think this week is a game that I already had in my library because they already gave it away for free before. But it's been going on for years. So obviously there's going to start being some repeats in there. They can't give away everything for free all the time. I get it. So EA was one of the games storefronts that had this policy of basically playing the game for 10 hours as a free demo. So you download the game for free, and you have a timer as soon as you start it, counting down 10 hours. Once that 10 hours is up, it basically locks the game from allowing you to play it. So what I did is I downloaded this when the game came out, and I intended to play the Need for Speed Unbound, the newest Need for Speed game. It's made by Criterion, which used to be really good. Now Criterion is kind of just, it's a mishmash of people who didn't work on the games that I love from that studio, and it's a lot of newer, new blood, I guess you could call it. I wanted to play it, but I didn't. Christmas was just too crazy of a time. I was super sick for a while. We got a new baby cat. A lot of stuff happened during Christmas, so I unfortunately did not get to play Need for Speed Unbound. By the time it came around to me wanting to play it, I had so many other games that I wanted to play. I just didn't get to it. So instead, what I did is I just waited. And this last couple of weeks on Game Pass has now given me this game for free. Not to keep, obviously, but as long as I'm subscribed to Game Pass, like how it works with these subscription models, I get to play this game as long as I want. No 10-hour time limit, just play the game. So that's what I've been doing. And the reason why this showed up on Game Pass, I believe, is because they just came out with a new update, a new multiplayer update, which, hey, if you know me, I don't like multiplayer games. I hate them. I can't stand multiplayer games. However, with our Couch Money Discord server and things like that, I want to get more into community-driven gaming. Partially because I've been doing a lot of sponsored streams, and making money on that has definitely helped get me out of my wheelhouse of locking me into a certain amount of gaming preferences, and broadening that out even more into our Couch Money community would be really fun. So we're going to have a multiplayer stream every week, for a couple hours every week. And if someone joins up, great. If someone doesn't, no big deal. Play some multiplayer games for a couple hours every week, which would help me as well, because again, multiplayer is such a non-touched corner of gaming for me at the moment that I would really like to play some multiplayer games and have some conversations with some friends. So Need for Speed came out on Game Pass. I loaded it up, and I was greeted as soon as I loaded up the game with a big advertisement for their newest update version 3.0. One of the things that caught my eye about this is a new car. I really don't care about new car packs in video games. Just give me a few cars that I know in real life and I can play them and finish the game and never touch it again. However, this game had the DeLorean. Yeah, the 1985 DeLorean from Back to the Future. That's what they updated this multiplayer part of the game with, which is weird because Need for Speed Unbound is a illegal street racing type of game. You can think about Need for Speed Underground and Underground 2. That's the type of story and aesthetic that they're going for, illegal street racing cars, and they throw in the DeLorean because it's popular, it's pop culture, and it will get people to play the multiplayer part. How do I know that? Because it got me to. I am a sucker for the DeLorean. Throw in the Ecto-1 as well from Ghostbusters, and bam, I'm right there. Same as the DeLorean. So that's what I've been playing. I started it up, and I said, all right, how do I get this car? It's only in the multiplayer as far as I know. So I have to play the multiplayer and play this community event thing around the map. You got to play 12 rounds of this community multiplayer map to be able to have the option to purchase the DeLorean in the multiplayer game. So that's what I did. I said, it's like 12:30 at night. I'm pretty tired. I've had a rough day. I just want to play a game. It takes forever to load up for whatever reason. I load it up and I start playing, and it drops me into the multiplayer, and there's only 16 other people that are in that map at the same time. Every server has a limit of 16 players. So I look for the community event, I find it, I drive to it, it starts up, and it gives you a bunch of different challenges that you as a group of players, it's kind of weird. It's a little bit of King of the Hill, where you have this big circle on the map that you have to stay confined in to be able to participate in these events. Each event has a round that you have to complete and phases within that round. So it says, all right, everyone get to this spot in the map in 5 minutes. Once you get there and everyone shows up, the event starts. The event has 4 phases. Phase 1 says do, 15 seconds of drift. So everyone drifts for 15 seconds. It ticks it off the check mark, and then you're on to phase 2. Phase 2 says avoid the cops. So you avoid the cops for 2 minutes, and bam, you get through phase 2. Phase 3, hit break 3 golden cows statues. So you break 3 golden cow statues and bam, you're done with phase 3. And then phase 4, which is the last phase of round 1, says get, 15 seconds of airtime. So everyone's jumping over ramps, getting 15 seconds. Bam, phase 4 is done, and now you finished round 1, and you get points. Every one of those rounds, accumulates to your checklist of competing in 12 events so that you can purchase the DeLorean in multiplayer mode. So I did that for an evening. It took about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I was kind of scurrying around a little bit, learning the game because I never even played the game, and I was dropped into single or multiplayer because I wanted to get the DeLorean. Once I finished that, then, hey, I had a good time. I bought the DeLorean afterwards and drove around for a few minutes and went, all right, cool. It's, 2:30. I'm pretty tired. I'm going to head out and, go to sleep and finish the game. A couple nights ago, I started playing it for real, and this is where the game just dropped off a cliff for me. I really tried to like this game, and I might play more of it. I might not. I'm really not sure. I'm in this weird funk with gaming. I'm not in the mood to really play much. So it takes a little bit of time for me to really get into a game right now. Tears of the Kingdom, I want to play, but man, I don't feel like playing that sort of game right now. So that's why car racing games are pretty nice. Jump in, drive around, do a couple races, and jump out. So I started this game up, and the style of it is just unabashedly Zoomer. I hate using that phrase as a generational term, but that's, I guess, the nomenclature for it. And I just hate it. I hate it with a passion. But it is this younger millennial, new Zoomer type of mentality of very vain, very look at me, I've got swagger, look how stupid and cool my haircut looks. It's a mess. It is Zoomer, the video game, in like pretty much every aspect. Instead of driving around cars and doing illegal street races and, committing crimes, which is, I believe, what the Underground series really focused on, which is what a lot of people liked, this series is more, concerned with your looks and your poses and talking about how cool you are and how dope this is going to look on social media, as opposed to, actually building up like a criminal empire and, street racing and outrunning cops. A few years ago, even on this podcast, I talked about the second to last Need for Speed game that I played. It was the last Need for Speed game that I played, which was Need for Speed Heat. But then they came out with one a couple years ago, and I did not finish that, unfortunately. I think they came out with one between this and Heat. I could be wrong. I haven't really paid attention to the Need for Speed series recently. But basically, the gameplay itself is it's really boring. The city feels very bland, uninspired, and I hate that phrase too, uninspired. You don't have to be inspired 24/7 to create a, racing city. But there should be something more than just city, a little bit of countryside, and whatever else there is. I haven't even driven the full map yet. But it just feels very bland and uninteresting. There's nothing of interest in this game so far. I played a solid 5-ish hours of this game, and I feel like I've seen the entire game in the first, maybe hour. The storyline itself is very bland as well because it doesn't feel like there's anything new or interesting. It feels very, very textbook, early beginning writer for a video game. It feels like these are college, short stories that are written by some kid who grew up watching the Fast and Furious movies and that's all they know. And they took most of their lingo and dialogue from, social media, like TikTok more than anything else. And I don't even have that social media platform, so I don't really know what that's about, but that's the one, the younger generation is geared towards. And that's really what it seems like this is geared towards. It is geared towards people who watch and stream TikTok videos. And that is not me at all. I hate that stuff. So trying to play this game, everything is hitting me in the face with how annoying it is. This is like sitting and watching and listening to a 13-year-old talk about their TikTok video. That's what it feels like playing this game. The people who are supposed to be like 20s, like their mid-20s, they act like teenagers. They talk like teenagers. They literally say, there was one thing that I played last night, and I went, I don't know if I can play this anymore. She said, "That's what it's like, yo." And I was like, is this out of the early 2000s? Like, am I watching Malibu's Most Wanted with Jamie Kennedy? Like, this is what this writing is? Like, they're trying to make me take it seriously when it's so absurd. So I really have a big issue with the writing and dialogue in this game. And let me just go on record, because I don't really think I've ever talked about it, about how much this trope bothers me. It's a trope of your character trying to prove how cool and calm and collected he is when he's not. When you're a greenhorn and you are trying to act like, I've been doing this my entire life. I'm cool. I've, quote unquote, got this. That phrase needs to be completely removed from all writing for the future. From this moment forward, you are not allowed to use "I got this" as dialogue for a character, or "we've got this," because it has been overused and overplayed for years now, and it just makes your character look stupid. My character in the video game said "we've got this" like 5 times in one scene. "We've got this. Yo, I got this, yo." Like, what is going on? That's not good. First of all, that's not good dialogue. Second of all, it makes me feel like my character is an idiot. He has to completely reassure not just everyone around him, but himself that he's got this, and that he is basically, trying to make sure that he knows that he can do this job. I don't want to play someone like that. I want to play someone who is not just saying, "Hey, I can do my job," but does it without having to tell everyone every single time, all the time. It's that old saying of "methinks the lady doth protest too much," right? It's exactly the same thing. You keep saying you got this. Clearly you don't feel that way. That's how the character feels to me. And I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Not only is my character saying "I got this" or "we've got this, yo," so are other people around. And again, it really makes me hate the writers of modern video games. And I'm not going to get into all the extra stuff here, because that's not what this podcast is about. But this need and this reasoning behind all these writers in modern video games using the same exact lingo, the same exact beat-for-beat storylines and character interactions and dialogues is really wearing me thin. It's grinding me down to, that's partly why I haven't been playing games this last couple of months as much. Even this year, we're already over halfway through the year. And at the start of this year, I said there's a deluge of games. There is a tidal wave of brand new video games coming out. And I don't see that as much as I thought there was going to be, because the games that are coming out are garbage. There are a lot of indie games being thrown in as trying to be either the middle tier, which I think I do want to do a podcast on maybe next time when I can get more thoughts down. But there is a larger, aspiration for these games that they're trying to beat, and they're just not there. You're getting these indie games that are $40-$50. They've got, a couple dozen hours of gameplay, but it's really the same, 5 hours repeated over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And again, it's also this younger generation, this quote unquote new blood, if you will, of video game writers that have no idea how to interact with normal humans and how normal people interact with each other and converse. I don't know about you, but normal 30-year-olds don't say, we've got this 24/7. They don't say, yo, we got this, yo. They're not talking like Jamie Kennedy. And this is like, it's gaming, writing, it's writing 101. You don't repeat the same lines, and you make your characters believable, because the voice actors in this game are atrocious. And it's really sad. And I think it's not really the voice actor themselves. I think it's more the fact that the dialogue is so poorly written, it's just really hard to make it sound natural. There's this real big, there's this real big push to demonize a lot of this stuff. There's a real big push for YouTubers and streamers to, harp on video games. These creations that hundreds and thousands sometimes of people work on for years of their life. And all it is a big joke to these YouTubers and streamers. Let me play this game and just, riff on it. Let me make fun of it. And it's like, this is someone's, energy and life and desire that they put into it. Some of it is worth, razzing. Some of it is definitely worth, calling out as this is bad. But not everyone. And that's all that YouTubers care about, because, negative reactions get better, views and comments and all that crap that doesn't really matter. I just want to talk about video games. And what I've played of this game, it feels not just, again, I try not to use the formulaic canned verbiage that you'll see on every YouTube video and podcast, where they say the same canned lines over and over again. I could say, by the numbers, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, or, whatever it is. I don't like using those phrases, but sometimes they are apt. But basically what this game feels like is, it feels like a product more than an art. And there's a give and take with a lot of that stuff. When you get into these video games, the game itself should start from an artistic vision. I want to make this sort of game. I feel that it would be very cool if we had this style of game. That's where it should start. The seed of the video game should be artistic in nature. Also, one of the things that I really care about with this, desire to make these artistic games is, I do understand that these are products made by multi-billion-dollar corporations in certain aspects. So they are products, but they should start with the artistic form and then create the project around that and create that product around the artistic seed. So it's it's a blend of not just artistic, but also making something to sell to a consumer. I get it. These are businesses. But I think a lot of modern gaming is just product over artistic value. How can we make this thing to sell to as many people as possible without spending as much as possible? And that's where I think a lot of modern gaming has really nosedived. And that's why I haven't been playing as many video games. All of these games that have been coming out this year, I just see behind the curtain. There's this veil of this sheen, this beautiful luster of a video game that looks amazing and it's hyped up and everyone's excited to play it. But it's transparent in a way where I can see the reflective nature of, hey, this looks like a cool video game. But then I'm seeing behind that veil and I'm seeing the real intent of the project, and it is just a product. And that's really all it is. It's a SKU. It's a barcode. It is a sellable item that is only concerned about selling it, for as much as possible, for as long as possible, and keeping the costs down. This is a much bigger issue, and I definitely need to do a couch talk on this. But these games, every game does not need to take 7 years to make. This is why we have such a weird range of video games right now, and where we have this, it's an ebb and flow, of course, like with game releases, it's always been that way. But how many actual game developers put out a yearly game anymore? None. No one creates a yearly game anymore. We used to get Madden and, the hockey, the NHL and NFL and NBA, MLB sports games every year, right? And we still do, but different teams are working on those most of the time now. You get a game like Call of Duty. We got Call of Duty every year, right? But now it's split between, 3 different companies and all the sub-companies below in Activision, where Sledgehammer gets 1 year, and then they're off making their game, behind the scenes for 3 years, and then it comes back out 3 years later as their next game. We don't get that anymore because people are focused way too much on these big, bombastic, blockbuster type of visual spectacle, but really nothing underneath. There's no depth to these games. They're, flash in a pan, things, their visual representation and eye candy, and that's pretty much it. And I'm just kind of sick of it at this point. I've really grown disillusioned with gaming, modern, big budget gaming. I've definitely fallen back on a lot. So I've been playing this Need for Speed Unbound game for a little bit, and I have just crashed and burned on it. Honestly, it is just a game that I cannot stand listening to. I initially played it and was interested in it because the visual flair seemed interesting. It seemed new, at least. But when you actually get into the game, you see it's dudes with big puffy jackets, throwing up, hand signs and posing and talking about posting their socials and stuff like that with their cars. And I'm just like, dude, I hate these type of people. Not just in the game, but in real life too. I want nothing to do with those types of people. Why would I want to play a video game about those vain, narcissistic, young, childish people? They have a character who's the owner of a garage in this game, in Unbound. And he is the old dude. He's probably like 30, 40 maybe. And he's talking about, like, oh my gosh, it is like, he keeps talking about family. And it's like, oh my gosh, did you just take from freaking Fast and Furious? Because that's exactly what it sounds like. But he's the older guy. He talks about how family is more important than cash and posting social media stuff. And the two characters, you and the, turncoat, basically your trader character at the beginning of the game, they're talking about how money and social status is everything. And it's just like, oh my gosh, do you not realize you're making fun of yourself? Like, man, I just hate, I want these people to die in a car wreck as fast as possible. And me just, transfer into the old dude and run the garage. And I want that to be the game over this street racing and all this crap. But there are some cool effects and things like that. And that's what I think where the artistic point comes into play, is that artistic style is what grabbed me. The weird neon stripes and flashing, like, I can't think of the actual film term for it. Rotoscoping. The rotoscoping of effects and smoke layers on the actual cars that are very cartoonish. It's really cool. I think that's a rad design for that game. But man, it's just a freaking mess. So I really wish that they would come back to a more interesting approach for these types of games. The last best Need for Speed game, a lot of people say the Criterion 2009 Need for Speed game was better. I will put money down that Need for Speed Most Wanted, I think it's 2012 or 2013, I can't remember when it came out. That, hands down, is the best Need for Speed game. It is so off-the-wall crazy. There are events in that game where you meet up into a point, and there's an event, this is the only thing I really remember of that game, is that there's a Ferris wheel made out of cars rolling towards you, hurling cars in your direction, and you have to avoid it. There is nothing like that in any of the other Need for Speed games that I played, and that immediately is more interesting to me than, yo, let me pose on my hood and take a selfie. Like, dude, just go away. Like, just go away at that point. But Need for Speed Most Wanted, again, I think it's the 2012 or 2013. I played it because I got it for free from EA. Because EA had their Origin app back in 2013 when SimCity 2013 came out. And SimCity 2013 was such a disaster. They did this big public apology and said anyone who bought this game, instead of getting a refund like they should have, they just gave 2 games away for free. One of the games that I got for free was Need for Speed Most Wanted. I played it, and that was so worth buying SimCity 2013 and having it just mess, because I never would have played that game before, and I think is one of my favorite modern racing games. So, man, that's kind of all that I've played so far. Like, I really haven't played much else. I started playing the remake of System Shock, and I want to get back into it. It's just, I played it, I started it super late at night. I had some weird issues where I couldn't get the movement to feel proper. It felt very weird. And then I realized, all the options are, not saving. So I would turn off motion blur. I would, drop the frequency of the movement speed down to, way below what it is, because it's like a Twitch shooter. It is just way too fast. And I'm playing on a keyboard, a controller, not a keyboard and mouse. And so it just felt really off to me. But I started playing it, and I really liked what the remake is showing so far. Unfortunately, I heard a lot of bad things about it. Luckily, I stopped listening to most people nowadays. If a game interests me in the slightest, I'm going to check it out for myself. But there are a few people that I usually trust. One of them is Digital Foundry. John Linneman is probably one of my favorite people to listen to talk about video games right now. Unfortunately, I think Digital Foundry goes way too much into the technical and not enough about the fun playing experience of video games. They are probably 95% about the technical analysis. And I think that's good to a point, but there is definitely a lot of wiggle room that they should be using where you just need to calm down. You need to focus on the actual game itself and not the technical part of it so much. Like, there was one video that they did where they were talking about the analysis of the graphics in the ray traced version of Control, 2019's Control by Remedy. They put out the RTX, the ray tracing version, and they started going through, and there was like a whole chapter of that video, it was like 5 minutes long, about the reflection in the eye of Jesse and how the reflection in the eye of the character had a reflection of the table, and the phone in the middle of the room was reflected on a surface of the table's metallic chair leg, or the legs, or the chair's metallic leg. This is something that you cannot view and perceive unless you stop the game and record it, go into Photoshop, and you have a 8K resolution, and you zoom in 400%. It's just, or like 1,000%. It is impossible to see. It makes zero difference playing the game, and they spend like 5 minutes just talking about how amazing it is. Yeah, I guess it's amazing, but it's nothing I'll ever see. So why do I care about it? And that's the one thing with Digital Foundry that I do find not pretentious. I just think they're focusing on the wrong things in the video game. I like doing this podcast because I like talking about the experiences and how I feel playing these games and the cool moments the games allow me to experience, instead of just talking about, well, the graphical mesh, of the water fountain where it's waving is technically invisible. And it's like, yeah, that's cool if I was a game designer, I guess, but I'm just wanting to know how the game plays, how it runs. Is it fun or not? That's what I listen to gaming podcasts. And I haven't listened to a gaming podcast in over 2 years, basically, because no one does podcasts the way that I want them to do. I want to listen to people talk about video games and tell me their experiences and just have a good time. That's what I care about. So that's kind of what I've been playing. Need for Speed Unbound and like the first hour of System Shock Remake. And that's really it. Something interesting is that I did find that Game Pass is going to have Lies of P, which is the Dark Souls Pinocchio game coming out on Game Pass. So I don't think I have to buy it, which I'm excited about, because I don't want to buy those games because I know I'm not going to like most of them. And I even played the demo for like 20 minutes and then stopped. I know it's like a 2-hour demo and it has like the first part of the game or whatever, but I just kind of want to play the game, and I want to play it for a little bit, and it's not going to be something that's going to take hold of me like Elden Ring probably did. Elden Ring was a very special part because I think my wife was out of town and I had a full month off of work, and just work is really busy right now. We're in our busy season, so I don't have the time to stay up until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning right now playing, these games. And I just hate Dark Souls games. They're all the exact freaking same. However, if it is on Game Pass, I will play it and I will try to, get through it as much as possible. But they're so dark. They're so boring. They're so formulaic that I'll probably play a couple days, force myself into like the first boss fight, die on the first boss fight a few times, and then probably put it down. I just don't really like those games. And one thing that I really did like about Elden Ring was the traversal. It felt fast. I can use that, goat horse, the ghost goat horse, to jump and really fly through the level. It felt very expansive and open. It didn't feel like dark corridors, which the first demo of Liza P does. So that is called Lies Like I'm Lying to You of P, and the character's name is P as in Pinocchio. Why didn't they just call it Liza Pinocchio? It sounds like Liza, like the name Eliza P. Like Eliza P. That sounds like the name of the game, not lies, like I'm lying, of P. Like the character's name is P and he's lying. That's what the game's name is, but it sounds like Liza P. Just stupid. I have been playing a lot more pinball. Again, that's one of the only things that I really have been playing way more than anything else. Pretty much every night I'll play at least 15 to 20 minutes while I'm waiting for dinner to finish up or something like that. I'll play some pinball. I did add some extra pinball tables. So I think in the last podcast I talked about Pinball Arcade, which I think is the best, hands down, pinball arcade format, or the digital pinball playing experience in format. Pinball Arcade is phenomenal. I really, really wish the developers did not lose the license to Pinball FX or Zen Pinball. They don't know what they're doing. Pinball Arcade did. The only issue was what was it? They did the Who's Pinball Wizard. They made that song the theme song for whenever you start up the game. So every single time you start playing the game, the Who's Pinball Wizard, but it's not the Who. It's a cover of that song. So it's a crappy cover of Pinball Wizard that automatically plays at ear-blistering volume as soon as you start the game every single time. Luckily, I have Launchbox, which is a front end for emulation. So what I have in Launchbox is I have a pinball section. So I have consoles, handhelds, arcades, and pinball tables. And in my pinballs table section, I have it split up into the three different types of pinball gaming emulators. One is Pinball Arcade, 2 is Pinball FX, and 3 is what is known as Future Pinball. I'll get into that in a second. Pinball Arcade has all these tables in, a nice wrapper for a video game that you can buy on, PlayStation 4, 5, Xbox One, and all that, and PC on Steam. What you can do is you can set up basically like ROM images that will link to that game and automatically start that exact table. That's what I want. It took a little bit of while, and I had to fix a lot of other people on forums, things that they did to make it actually work exactly the way it should. But once I did that, man, I can load up pinball emulation. I can load up Elvira. I can load up the Terminator 2, Twilight Zone, Addams Family, Medieval Madness. I can load up any table I want within a click of a button. And it goes directly to that table, and then I can exit out with a click of a button, and then I can scroll through. And so I've been playing Pinball Arcade more than anything else, but there is one real-world pinball table that is not in Pinball Arcade, but it is in Pinball FX, or Zen Pinball's pinball game. It is Indiana Jones. I don't know why I got hooked on this, and it is 100% by coincidence that I started getting really into the Indiana Jones pinball table while the new Indiana Jones film just came out. 100% coincidence. It had nothing to do with the movie. But I've been playing it, and I've been having a lot of fun. I'm terrible at it, but I'm getting better. It is a difficult table, but I really like it. My favorite memory of that table is I played it at Disneyland. So they have the Indiana Jones ride and the Jungle Cruise. And the Jungle Cruise and Indiana Jones ride share a shop called the Bazaar across the way from the Jungle Cruise ride. And so I remember when I was younger, when I would go there all the time, my friend Eric and I, when we had yearly passes, I actually went there and dropped like maybe $5 just playing that table over and over again. And I did really poorly, so I lost $5 pretty quickly. But now I have a digital version, so I can play it all night long. It's great. So I've been playing that. I've been trying to play some of the the Pinball FX normal tables. It's really funny because the main difference between Pinball Arcade and Pinball FX is Pinball FX is very much unrealistic. It is a video game style pinball where things can happen, like the table can flip upside down, gravity can be reversed, slow motion can happen, laser beams can shoot the ball and explode it, whatever. Pinball Arcade focuses solely on real world pinball tables and emulating it properly so it feels like you're playing the real thing as much as possible. So I've been playing trying to play some more of the Pinball FX normal stuff so that, I can get a little bit of both. And I remember back in, I want to say 2013, 2014, maybe later on than that, 2015 at the latest. But I played the Pinball FX version. Oh, no, it was definitely 2013, 2014, 100%. It was the Infinity Gauntlet table. This is before, the movies came out and they were doing the Infinity Gauntlet and all that. They did a Marvel pinball table of the Infinity Gauntlet, and Thanos is, trying to woo death and all that stuff. So it's strictly the comic book, and they have Adam Warlock there. That is a great pinball table. It is totally unrealistic. The graphics are crazy and all that stuff. And like I said, the gravity, reverses and stuff, but it is so much fun. And I really liked that. They also have a lot of, other stuff like Archer from the FX TV show, the cartoon Archer, Family Guy. They have some stuff like on Universal movies. So they have a Back to the Future one, which I think I spent like 45 minutes to an hour playing one round because it just would not end, because it's really geared for, just allowing you to play forever. And so, like I said, one round, quote unquote quarter of that, I played for like 45 minutes to an hour on one ball took me like 30 minutes. And then those last few minutes, like 10, 15 minutes on each other ball 2 and 3. But man, it's been a lot of fun playing pinball. I really, really want to get a pinball table, but I think one of my next projects is going to be building a digital pinball table and not just having these Pinball Arcade and Pinball FX tables playable, but there's a restoration project, like an open source project called Future Pinball, where people can make more real world pinball tables, but also do their own homebrew pinball tables as well. And so I think I would really like to be able to make craft a pinball table, set a TV in it, make the arcade button flippers and switches in the pull tab, and have that all emulate to digital button presses, and have a digital pinball table. I think that would be really rad, because I've had arcade cabinets before, but I've never had a pinball table. My father-in-law does have a pinball table. It's Dirty Harry. I want to get that for Future Pinball to see, because I would really like to get really good at that and then show up one day and say, hey, let's play some pinball, and then just blow the high score out of the water on that table. I think that would be really, really fun. But it's really interesting. Pinball is really cool. I'm getting it a lot more now, and just seeing the story of the pinball table and how you get the high scores. And it's the first time I've really ever been captivated to get high scores in video games. So that has been a lot of fun. And the last thing that we're going to talk about for this episode is the game of the month. It's July 3rd, so it's the day before 4th of July, and I haven't come up with a game of the month for July yet. Partially because I just haven't been into gaming this last month, so I haven't really thought about it, and now that I'm thinking about, the Steam sale just came out, so I'm going to try and just find a few Steam games on sale for a good, price and play those and talk about those in the next podcast. There are a few that I do have in my cart waiting for me to purchase. One of them is called Pizza Tower. It came out earlier this year, and it kind of blew up on the indie streaming scene, where it is a runner platformer game. I think it's kind of like Meat Boy, Super Meat Boy, but it's animated really, really well. It looks like a 90s cartoon, and I'm really interested. I love pizza, so why not, right? There's another game called Deep Rock Galactic, which has been around for a while. It's a pretty good multiplayer game. I think I want to get that for doing our game weekly multiplayer madness streams. But I just found out that it's also on Game Pass. So I might actually install that and download it instead of buying it on sale for Steam, because why buy it when I could play it for free anyways? I do want to get more of the Walkabout mini golf for VR courses. I have had some issues with my VR setup. They introduced, it's really weird. This kind of be the finish of this. But I love VR gaming. I did a whole video on VR. You can go check it out at gamerdie.net. But I don't VR game as much as I want to. But one thing that I really like doing is when I pick up, I can just kind of get into a VR game and I'll play that for like a week straight. So a few weeks ago, I was like, man, I haven't played VR in like a month. I want to really get back into VR. I throw the headset on, I start loading up the game, and I'm having these really weird stutters in the game. I'm like, what's going on? This is really weird. I spent 2 full days, like days off days, of my free time trying to fix and figure out and formatting my computer to freaking see what's going on, only to find out that Oculus, or Meta, whatever you want to call them, Facebook, released this update for streaming to PC that basically broke my Oculus Quest 2 headset so that it would have really bad network spikes. So it would just spike up and create this crazy lag where I could not play it. And I am very much in the way of, I can just play a game if there's a little bit of lag, a little bit of, frame lag, dropped frames and stuff like that, I can deal with it. But this was so bad, it was actually unplayable in VR. So I finally figured out, it's not me, it's just this update that literally went live the night before. No one knew about it, and then people started posting on it after I spent hours and hours and days of my free time trying to troubleshoot what's going on. This was working fine, and nothing has changed over the last, several weeks of me not playing this. Why does it suddenly not work now? So that has been also a big frustration. I've been having some really weird network, not even network issues, just computer issues in general, where things aren't responding the way, like even right now, this stream, I should be able to monitor this stream on my tablet via OBS Blade, but it's not working. It worked fine last week when I was doing my streams for the sponsors. So I don't know what's going on. I'm having a real weird issue with that. So it's been really frustrating trying to troubleshoot, which makes me really angry. And by the time I figure out what's going on, or I say, screw it, I'm ready to stream, I'm just such in a bad mood that I don't even want to do it. Oh, but that's been my life in gaming for the last few weeks, or the last month and a half here. I wanted to have just a big, long stream a podcast about all the amazing stuff that I've been playing since I did the podcast last. But summer, man, summer is a really crappy time for me. I hate the summer in general. Living out here in Tennessee, it's a lot nicer. The summers are different. They're more beautiful, infinitely more beautiful than California. I hope that state falls off into the ocean. But it is also, unfortunately, something that's really hard for me to deal with. The humidity is an issue. It's not as bad as dry heat. I actually hate dry heat more than humidity heat. But there's just so much stuff happening in our lives, our farm, our livestock, and all that stuff that is just, it's been draining on me over the last couple of months here, more than I initially thought it would. So that's kind of why I haven't been playing games. It's just my energy and my desire to game has just kind of taken a backseat. So that's going to do it for the Game or Die podcast. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you want to check out more of my stuff, you can always go to the website, which is called gameordie.net. GAMEORDIE.net. Gameordie.net, not .com. And with that, I will catch you next time. Thank you very much for listening.